No. It's okay. Now it's live.
Okay.
Like it stopped and then it would start it again. Weird.
So see what happened. What I think happened with the Patrick, Roger, Tom, Cashless was you were bringing up points that I felt were already dealt with by the Sweden situation. Like, sure, that might be a concern, but it's not in Sweden. And we were trying to hurry up and get to the parts where Sweden did have the same concerns, because it's like, well, here's your test case and they don't have that problem. And it felt like we were discounting what you were saying. At least that's what I was doing.
Discounting Roger. Ooh, it sounds like a nice name for a chain supermarket.
Yeah, discount Roger.
By cover band.
Anyway, we should address that when Patrick's back on.
Right.
A lot of people were into the yacht rock talk.
So.
I know. I was surprised because it seemed like people wanted us to do more food.
People are also like,
until you tell them about yacht rock.
Yeah, food and musical tastes. Very upsetting for people.
All right, you guys ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Can I please also note, while we're talking about musical days, before we start, that Lil B, the bass god, blessed the Pittsburgh Penguins, and they scored 7 goals in a shutout last night. So please humble yourself before the bass god.
There you go. It's
the
proof.
bass god also asked people to send him money via PayPal this morning. So
bass god also said we have to start the show.
Okay.
All right. He didn't really say that. Here we go. 3, 2.
Do you like listening to advertisements? Me neither. Want to help and support creators directly? Then head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support and help us reach our new milestone today.
This is the Daily Tech News for Thursday, April 12th, 2018. From DTNS headquarters in Los Angeles, I'm Tom Merritt.
And from Studio Feline, I'm Sarah Lane.
And from Oakland, California, I'm Justin Robert Young.
And with us as well is Mr. Roger Chang, our producer. How are you, Roger?
I'm good from my side of the San Fernando Valley.
How is it over there?
It's quite nice. Yesterday it was unsufferably hot, and today it's quite breezy.
Excellent. Well, let's start the show with a few tech things you should know.
Market analyst firm IDC says that PC shipments were flat during the first quarter, supported by business sales. Now, globally, PC deliveries were unchanged in the first 3 months of the year compared with the year earlier, with HP leading sales. In a separate report, research firm Gartner said it found global shipments declined 1.4% in the period.
Amazon announced Thursday that its acquisition of Ring has been completed. Amazon says Ring will remain independent with all of its employees on board. Amazon also said that the price of the least expensive Ring doorbell will be permanently lowered to $100. Chris, note for a Ring.
Sources tell Reuters that Walmart is likely to reach a deal to acquire a majority stake in India's Flipkart by the end of June. Indian media report Amazon's preparing a counter offer. Why is everybody fighting over Flipkart? Well, Flipkart controls nearly 40% of India's online retail market.
Sources tell Bloomberg that because of lagging sales for the HomePod, Apple lowered sales forecasts and cut some orders with Inventec Corp, which is one of HomePod's manufacturers. The HomePod's first 10 weeks of sales gave it 10% of the smart speaker market. To put it into perspective, 73% is what Amazon's Echo device has, and 14% for the Google Home. This is according to Slice Intelligence.
Apple had such a haunted history with their speakers that all of them should come preloaded with those Halloween records that are just spooky sounds and creaking.
All right, let's talk about Disney's big launch. Take it away, Justin Robert Young.
ESPN launched ESPN Plus Thursday, a $4.99 per month subscription service built into ESPN's redesigned app for Android, iOS, Apple TV, Chromecast, Fire TV, and the web. The service promises to deliver thousands of hours of live soccer, boxing, golf, tennis, rugby, cricket, and college sports to subscribers.
Also doing an MLB game a day. So similar to what Facebook gets. I think that's how ESPN's doing this, because I was curious. I'm like, wait a minute, ESPN carries like, Thursday night baseball, Wednesday night baseball, Sunday night baseball. They're getting a digital deal, and they're getting a digital deal with the NHL for next season as well. So they'll have a game a day of hockey next season. the leagues are doing these sorts of digital deals with Facebook and Twitter, and ESPN Plus. We forget, we think of it as a cable, but ESPN Plus is a digital service, so they're going to get that as well. So they get to say, we have the big names, MLB and NHL, and then most of the stuff is this. I actually think its biggest value, and I see them promoting this, is the back catalog of non-event stuff, 30 for 30, Bryant Gumbel, etc.
Yeah, the 30 for 30 stuff. There's also some Kobe Bryant is hosting a new show. It seems to be the sort of thing where for $5 a month, if you really want a lot of these extras, I don't know. I mean, if you're a big rugby fan, sure, maybe this is the best way to do this, because it's not going to be echoing Sports Center or anything that you already know ESPN to be. It's extra stuff. But they're also bundling in some legacy content. For example, the O.J. Simpson series, which is, so it's like, okay, all right, I get it. It's sort of ESPN's YouTube bread.
Well, here's where I think this is brilliant. They are doing what Twitter should have done and still should do. What your relationship with that ESPN app for most people is that it hits you with an alert when a game's close or your team's about to win. What they want to do, and scaling up from when this Fox acquisition goes through, and now they have more of a leeway to be able to control the networks that will feed things like baseball and hockey and basketball. They want you to have more and more of an escalating relationship with when you click that alert that you are able to see that game. It's why they are adding add-ons for NHL and for the NHL and Major League Baseball. Now you can buy a subscription to their service through the ESPN Plus app. I think $4.99 is an interesting price point. We haven't seen a lot of these services that low, but I think this is what really an app should be. I should want, when I'm alerted, I should be able to go watch it if I want.
And Disney flexing its muscles with its majority interest in BAM Tech, the former Major League Baseball Advanced Media streaming service. Dry run for future services like this. It's all experimental. And when you've got something that's kind of an add-on, $5 makes sense. Jeremy Fleming, director of the UK's GCHQ, said his agency worked with the Ministry of Defense to conduct cyber attacks against Islamic State last year. The attacks disrupted communications and propaganda infrastructure. Fleming said it was, quote, the first time the UK has systematically and persistently degraded an adversary's online efforts as part of a wider military campaign. Fleming said other operations might, quote, look to deny service, disrupt a specific online activity, deter an individual or a group, or perhaps destroy equipment and networks. Now, UK is not the only one doing this. The US has talked about this with their cyber command as well. And I'm sure there are plenty of efforts underway, but this is the latest one to talk about it. And I thought it was an interesting news hook for this idea that instead of people from intelligence agencies getting up and saying, hey, can we have more legislation? Can we have backdoors to encryption? Can we do more surveillance? They're saying, hey, this is a thing we're actually doing that we didn't need you to change anything for. And we found, and it appears to have been effective.
Exploiting the apparent lack of ISIS's IT department.
Well, you say that, but they have a very robust IT department. There just hadn't been a sophisticated, coordinated attack against them. Anonymous declared that they were going after ISIS and found that it was not as easy as a disorganized group without an IT department. They were pretty sophisticated.
Well, good. Get them, boys.
Yeah. Well, and so you guys, it sound like you guys are even blinking at this, that the idea of the government going out and saying we are going to do what hackers do. We're going to disrupt, denial of service attacks, break in, etc. That's all good, right?
I think this is the future, right? I mean, this isn't the future. This is the present. This is how you can, with relatively little cost, disrupt a major operation throughout the world. Absolutely.
Yeah. The only thing that really, I don't know, resonates with me is not that this is happening. It's that they said, we did this. Here's how we did this. Here are the effects from us doing this. You don't really hear that in this realm very often.
Yeah, you don't hear people talking about this side of things. And granted, they didn't go into details. They don't want to divulge their operations manual, and that's understandable. But I know it, even though in this case, I think we all probably agree that this is someone that we want you to get. This is the kind of thing that intelligence agencies can use for good or ill. And there's no supervisor, or I shouldn't say is the supervisory apparatus for conducting cyber warfare sufficient? That's the question.
Yeah, I mean, we will hopefully be holding them to the same standard that we hold our own military, and obviously there is a tremendous conversation that has gone on for as long as the country's been alive about what the military is allowed to do to its own citizens.
Snap is testing a commerce function with some Snapchat Discover publisher channels. This is according to Bloomberg, who has sources who tell it this. The feature lets some Discover publishers add an option for users to swipe up and then buy a product that maybe I would put into my Snap story from the recently launched store, including Inside Discover, which also offers Snapchat merchandise like sweatshirts and hats. Snap is reportedly not taking any of the revenue generated from sales, at least right now. So, Justin, are you going to buy Kylie Jenner's lip kit via this?
Is she back on Snapchat? I mean, I don't know.
That's the only person I could think of who would be like, who would sell something on Snapchat? I don't know.
Maybe DJ Khaled sweatpants or something like that. Yeah.
I don't hate this idea. Listen, if I was following somebody, and this is kind of hypothetical, but like if I'm following somebody and I really like their life and they've got something to sell and there's an easy way for me to buy it, if somebody's wearing, shoes that I might like or whatever it is. Okay. If this is a fairly seamless way to do so, okay. The fact that Snap would not take a cut of this says to me they're just trying to figure out if this is even anything anybody wants, and they probably will do so in the future.
They want to get people in the door to set up stores. That's
Snap.
That's what
Snap wants to strike while the iron is propped up on a cushion in front of the U.S. Congress. They are happily going to publishers who are upset with Facebook for many reasons, and most of them having to do with monetization, and saying, here, sell things, fine. Go for it. We'll give you new ad units. You can do branded content as ad units. We'll do whatever you want. You get to keep all the money for now until we get enough of you doing this.
Certainly so. And I don't know. I have more of a interest in seeing digital goods sold this way on Snap for me personally than having yet another place that I got to remember which credit card I have on file with them and whether or not it's my address and not the other address, or that one time that I got it sent to my work and now I got to change that because I don't work there anymore. Those are things that go through my head whenever somebody offers me a super easy way to buy a thing right now.
Yeah, and Snap doesn't have as much information on you, but to conduct merchant transactions, they just need a little bit. Anybody can do it. So I think the weirdest thing is this idea of the branded content that they're talking about, where everything's so short on Snapchat, and yet apparently it's effective because they're selling ads and they're creating these new ad units for people and putting some rules around them. But it's definitely things Snap needs to do to stay competitive and make money.
The U.S. National Transportation Safety Board says it's removing Tesla as a party in the investigation after Tesla disclosed March 30th that Autopilot was engaged in the crash that killed Walter Hong. Losing party status means that Tesla is no longer able to provide technical assistance to the NTSB. As the NTSB notes, having party status is a privilege that enables two-way information sharing. Tesla says it voluntarily withdrew because it didn't want to be restricted over what it can say. Tesla is being sued by Huang's family, who say that he complained previously that the car's autopilot pulled him toward the divider he crashed into. Tesla has said publicly that this shows Huang knew of the danger and yet engaged in it anyway.
Wow, is Tesla not being what you would expect from a company looking for good PR in this situation.
Seriously.
I mean, to the point that they're like, not only are we going to say things, but we're going to say them to the point that the NTSB kicks us off the investigation. That doesn't happen. Generally, car companies don't want to say anything. Generally, car companies use the investigation as a shield. Like, hey, we'd like to say more, but, NTSB, they don't like us to do that. So we're going to wait till the investigation's over. Tesla doing the opposite. And when the family says, hey, he told us many times that right at that place where he crashed and died, he noticed the car in autopilot taking him towards there. Tesla comes and spins it around on them and says, yeah, well, then he shouldn't have had autopilot on, should he? And granted, we're not quoting them directly. They were more sensitive than I'm making it sound right now. They said, look, we feel for the family. They said all the right things, but they did say, and so he shouldn't have had autopilot. We think this is not a failure of autopilot, that it is the responsibility of the driver.
Well, where this is very consistent with Tesla is they battle aggressively with PR, right? They want to get their message out, and they believe that when they present their side of the facts, it will be rich enough in detail and with enough scientific rigor that people will believe it, and that possibly it is a problem for them to have it mitigated by the NTSB or to be a party of whatever the NTSB comes back with in this investigation. And man, you're right. It doesn't exactly endear people when the headline is car company attacks family, grieving family, but or at least attacks the character of the man who left the grieving family. But it is fairly consistent that Tesla does not want anybody else to dilute their message. They want to talk as much as possible.
Sarah, did you have something to add?
Well, I just, it's sort of like, okay, NTSB says Tesla no longer has, party status to provide technical support for this issue, for this incident. But Tesla's the best company to do that. It's confusing to me, where it's like Tesla has been, removed from the situation, but who else is going to, sort of connect the dots here?
Well, I would wonder whether or not all the things that Tesla has to share has been shared at this point.
Well, and that's a good point, Sarah. They still have to comply with anything the NTSB asks of them. They just don't get to be in the room helping to guide the investigation, I guess.
Yeah, it's just odd.
Very odd. So Reuters had a really interesting story about Sung-Il High-Tech, South Korea's largest battery recycler, taking lithium-ion batteries from old mobile phones and laptops and extracting cobalt, lithium, and other scarce, mostly rare earth metals. This is a company that used to take gold and silver out of plasma TVs, but not a lot of plasma TVs anymore. So they're shifting gears. And this is a trend happening in a lot of recycling companies. Yi Kang-myung, Sung-Il High-Tech's president, said the shortage of mined metals had led his company to boost capacity 3 times by 2019. And it plans to list publicly in 2020. And the other background information here, if you haven't been following this along with us, rare earth metals are getting rarer on the ground, and China, which has the largest consumers of them with the factories that make electronics, has been locking up the few mines that are productive, especially in the Republic of the Congo.
So, layman question here. What would be wrong with basically recycling old phones and the other devices that people aren't using anyway to get a little bit more out of these rare earth metals that we need for future phones?
Nothing. There's nothing wrong with it at all. This is just something that wasn't cost effective until now. And I think one of the reasons Reuters did this story on it is having it done in Korea means that LG, Samsung, etc., can benefit by not having to import. They don't have to. I mean, China is going to be the dominant supplier of these rare earth metals because it's locking up rights to most of the mines. So it's expensive to import them from China. If Sung-Il High Tech and a few of the other recycling companies out there can start supplying them in country, that's better for Korean industry. And it's just a general trend where these recycling companies have focused on precious metals in the past, and they're shifting now to saying, you know what, it makes sense. The price of these is starting to pan out. There's enough of these batteries out there that will have no end of supply that we can start recycling them instead of sending them into a landfill.
Worth mentioning, if we can take a brief traipse into the political realm, that the current negotiations, high profile though they might be, that flirt with the idea of a trade war between the United States and China, it has been speculated that the ultimate trump card, if everybody is each putting their own tariffs on the table, would be China's dominance in rare earth metals. That is the one thing that is very, 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 very important in the modern economy, and there is really no answer for it. They have the market cornered on it.
I will hazard to say that despite the name, rare earth metals is really only rare because those metals do not exist in quantities where like gold ore, where you can find a huge deposit in one chunk. You have to sift through a lot of sand and rock to get any usable amount. In fact, they used to have a mining operation out here in California, and they had to shut it down because the EPA said that the amount of toxic chemicals that the operation was leaching was considered hazardous. So it could well be one of those things where if technology to mitigate a lot of those issues or improves the mining so it isn't as hazardous to the environment and people, could very well see an upswing as money goes into that sort of investment as well.
Yeah, I mean, to give you an example of the amounts we're talking about, just from recycling batteries, which is less than you would get from a mine, Sung-Il says it can produce 830 tons of lithium phosphate, 1,000 tons of cobalt metal equivalent, and 600 tons of nickel a year. And those are the numbers that we were mentioning they hope to triple by the end of 2019.
Going back to transportation, Uber announced it will start doing annual criminal background checks on U.S. drivers and hire a company to monitor those criminal arrests, either past or future. Uber is also entering new safety features inside its app to let riders call 911 in an emergency, and also making it easier for riders to share their whereabouts to friends and families while they're in a ride. Uber CEO Dara Khosrowshahi, I always get that wrong, Khosrowshahi, said that his company's aggressive scaling prevented steps like annual background checks from being done sooner. This, of course, was before he was CEO. Says now, I can't change the past, but I can change the things that we're going to do going forward.
Yeah, Uber also won a court case over the Uber Black service. It's not as great as it sounds. Uber Black is the limo service, and they're saying, oh, limo drivers are freelancers. But I don't know, it feels like the tide is turning for Uber under Dara Khosrowshahi, and he's out there doing his charm offensive. This 911 emergency call, easier for them to implement since they have implemented it in other markets. They were forced to implement it in India, as well as a few other places. So, this is the kind of thing that's an easy win because they're like, well, we already have some code that we can probably transport the US. And then I can go on the Today Show or Good Morning America or whatever and say like, hey, here's what we're going to do for you guys, even though there wasn't public pressure to do it. Smart moves, I think.
And why did Travis need to be booted? Because another person doing it makes it seem different than if he did. And with an IPO looming, that is something very, very, very important.
Oh, yeah, that's another part of this, right? I mean, they need to make investors feel comfortable that, oh, things are steadying. They're stabilizing. We got a new steady hand at the helm.
Yes.
It's funny that introing something like, now you can call 911 if you're about to be murdered in the back of your Uber. People are like, what? This is, that's insane. But there are enough instances, right, that has become a PR nightmare for Uber, among other things, that, yeah, this is a goodwill measure, a safety measure that has legs, for sure. But definitely Uber is now, a kinder company than we used to be in the past. We're not all about scaling and growth. We're about, keeping people safe. And, for a lot of people, especially, I don't know, my mother, who's, takes Uber to and from my house from the airport and still is like, well, where do I go? What do I do? How's this work? Those are the people that need to be convinced that this is safe and, these measures actually make sense.
Yeah, this is the flotation device from the airplane, right? You're probably not going to need it. But good to know it's there, just in case you do, right?
Well,
911 button, same thing.
And to be honest, it is proactive in that, oh, look, well, this is going to be here, instead of the line from Uber being, well, whatever, just go to your phone and hit 911. If you have mobile data, you're probably connected. You can
What's the deal?
It's an emergency. Don't you know how to deal with it?
Come on. Yeah, geez, who cares? Whatever. This isn't, we're not the 911 for Uber. You
What
know?
are we, Tesla? You want us to drive the car for you too? Oh, wait, we have that plan. Never mind. All right, folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, be sure to subscribe to Daily Tech Headlines, available on the Amazon Echo as a flash briefing in your Google Home device, also in the Anchor app. And of course, you can find it as a good old-fashioned podcast at dailytechheadlines.com. Got some good stuff in the mailbag today.
Yes, we did. This one comes from Norm. We definitely we got a lot of feedback about the idea of cash. Do we want cash? Is a cashless society even a thing that we should be working towards? This was a conversation about Sweden. Anyway, Norm says, I was listening to your discussion on the cashless society on my way back to Norway from Las Vegas. I travel on a semi-regular basis to the US and back. I'm increasingly annoyed by the US dependency on cash. In Norway, I never carry cash. I don't believe any of my friends do either. I'll have to check, but I also believe my parents, they're, in their 70s, they're cashless. They might have some cash due to old habits, but they have no problem living cashless. Roger's point of the government knowing what you spend your money on isn't that relevant, as all banks are privately owned. If you trust them with your money, mortgage and insurance, it's not really a huge step in showing them to know that I buy a chocolate bar every Friday, cashless and contact-free. Roger, what do you say?
Well, no, I mean, Norm brings up a good point. I will add it's a little disingenuous to use the argument that the government doesn't know what you spend, because part of the government's job is to collect taxes, and to be able to tax you the amount, they need to know the amount that was spent. And typically with mortgages, anything that above a certain amount, the government knows, because the bank or financial institution needs to file on that in order to say we lost money or we made money. And also one of the big reasons why cashless is such a big thing for governments is, one, it reduces overhead, but more importantly, allows them to track where money goes so they can crack down on tax avoidance and black market. So people basically working or operating outside of the tax regimen of the local government. So VAT, GST, sales tax, whatever. And also, it's very interesting to point out that in a financial preparedness sense, for example, a disaster emergency, the U.S. government actually recommends people carry a small amount of cash stored, ready to go. Quote, considering saving money in an emergency in a savings account could be used in any crisis. Keep a small amount of cash at home in a safe place. It is important to have small bills on hand because ATMs, credit cards may not work during a disaster when you need to purchase necessary supplies, fuel, or food. So it's not to say that don't go cashless. It's that with cashless, you need to be aware of certain things, but also just phasing out currency as a byproduct also needs some thought as well to take into consideration all these additional things.
Now, Miss Music Teacher also wrote in, not about cashless, wanted to share after listening to the pre and post show for Ban Cashless, my hyper-political tech-challenged 78-year-old mother watched the Senate hearings with Mr. Zuckerberg. She thought he did a good job answering questions, minus the which hotel question, and was overall impressed. However, she shut me down as soon as I tried to explain that most of the problem was lack of personal responsibility for allowing your data to be shared. I laughed and said, there you go, the difference between tech nerds and the rest of the world that uses Facebook. She simply sighed. Granted, this is the woman who called me last week to fix the TV input so she could watch cable while I was on a Caribbean cruise. So take her opinion with a grain of sea salt. Thank you, Miss Music Teacher. Good anecdote there. And I think representative of the difference between a lot of people in our audience and our attitudes towards something like Facebook and the general populace who feels like, no, Facebook shouldn't do that. I don't care if I had control of it. And thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit. You could submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. And of course, we have a Facebook group. We haven't gotten rid of it yet because people in there are still using it. You can go to facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow. to find out what they're saying. In fact, people were discussing whether they had been implicated in the Cambridge Analytica leak, and good conversations going on there.
And also thanks to Justin Robert Young, twice in 1 week. When's the last time that happened, man?
Well, I'll tell you what, you better get ready because it's going to happen next week too. So it's always a joy to be
2 weeks.
Or in 2 weeks?
Roger's like, actually, 2 weeks.
Actually, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about
Hashtag,
that.
well, actually. Hey, but okay, so that's fine. Where do people follow what you're doing until then?
Well, you can go ahead and follow my political newsletter, tinyletter.com/Justin Robert Young. It's usually about 5 to 6 links. You can read through it really quick. It's, I think, a fun way to keep up on politics that doesn't drive you nuts. And you can find me on Twitter at Justin R. Young, where I was informed today by my mother that she would like for me to share the listing for her house. She's selling the house that I grew up in on my Twitter.
Hey, Justin, we're selling your childhood home. Could you list it on Twitter?
Yes. So
this is in Florida.
This is in Davie, Florida. So I don't know if this has ever been done. A first for Daily Tech News Show. But if you would love a home with a tremendous master bedroom, 2 other bedrooms right there on 595 in lovely Davie, Florida, next to Nova Southeastern, this is the house for you. Head on over to my Twitter account at Justin R. Young for all the details.
My question to you is, why don't you buy it, Justin?
Because considering the amount of money that I'm going to have to pay to the federal government for my taxes today.
Right. Yep. Yep. I hear that, brother.
I would love nothing more than the amount of money that I have to pay for my taxes could be a lovely down payment on my childhood home. But unfortunately, that isn't in the cards.
All right, folks, don't forget, we're trying to get at least one more patron every month than the month before. And thanks to Somya Dip and thanks to Chris, we have a couple more people to make up for the people that have to lose their subscription. So we need more of you in the tent if you can help. And big thanks to people like Ipsiveris and looks like Brian as well, who upped their pledge. That helps too. And don't forget, there are some perks for being in the group. If you're pledging at $5 a month, that's 25 cents a show, you get a weekly column from me. This week's column were the 2 things I think Congress needs to do based on the Facebook hearings. And if you'd like to find out what those are, and you're already a patron, check out patreon.com/DTNS.
Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. You know, a lot of our patrons tell us whether they've upped their pledge or had to dial back for whatever reason. And it's always really nice to know a little bit more about our community. So please keep it coming. We're also live Monday through Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 2030 UTC. And you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live.
Shannon Morse and Len Peralta tomorrow.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
All right. Good show.
Something about that laugh.
Huh? What do you mean, sorry? Oh, something about it. I thought you said sorry about it. I was like,
oh, no. I was just saying, like, there's something about that laugh.
I love it.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
It makes me happy.
Folks, it's right next to the Tower Shops. You got a Taco Bell in there. You got a Chipotle, a Flanagan's.
What district is it in?
What's a Flanagan's?
Oh, that's a Florida staple, the Flanagan's.
Oh, I've never heard of Flanagan's.
It
sounds like an Irish bar.
It's not. It's actually what's his butt themed? Hemingway.
What?
Themed. Yeah.
Is it just whiskey and violence?
Yeah, no. Well, it's not themed. I mean, but it is. It's basically like a lot of like
come in for our 2 shots and a punch in the face special at Flanagan's.
Not untrue. Really, Flanagan's is known mostly in Florida because they serve all their drinks in gigantic green cups. And they are.
I hate it already.
Is it like a Bennigan's?
Catnip for dads. There was not a home in Florida that did not have 50 gigantic Flanagan's cups because dad can't get enough of it. It's just free cups. Why are we gonna leave free cups right here on the table?
Can we please add something to the DTNS store that says catnip for dads?
Catnip for cups. If we can get cheap green cups, we should do our own knockoff.
I mean, it's not a Flanagan's cup, but there's nothing wrong with keeping cheap plastic cups.
Well, you could have like
2000.
Sure. Look at you. All right.
If we could get green solo cups, we could just put DTNS. Or no, we could put catnip for dads.
It's still funny. That's one of the funniest things. Flanagan's. Now we have to go. Road trip.
So wait, was this the house you were born and raised in?
Not born, but certainly raised. I moved there coming out of middle school, so I started at a new high school. It is in the district of South Plantation High School, but it's also right next to Nova, which is an invite-only school that my brother attended.
Justin was born in a log cabin in what was then known as Penn's Woods.
Well, wait a second. Your brother got into Nova, but you did not? Or you didn't want to? Or what's going on?
I did not apply.
Okay.
Because at the point that I would have had to apply, we were not close to it. But
I see.
Eric was going to apply, we were close to it. So it made a little bit more sense that I would be getting...
Wait, is it like a Jesuit school? Like why?
No, I actually don't know.
Is it a magnet school?
It wasn't a magnet school because I went to magnet schools through my middle school. Let's see, Nova Middle School.
Yeah, when I went to high school, I was trying to decide, well, should I go to Greenville High School or not?
So it
right. I was like, do I drop out or do I go to the high school
or
in
should
my
I
town?
be truant? Those are my choices.
I'm not positive exactly what it is in terms of. I know it's not religion. It is just
okay.
Private,
it's
but it
just
is
a private school.
It is affiliated with the college that is right next to it. That is
I see.
Used to just be a law and business school program, and now has become a fairly it's really kind of blown up in terms of offer.
In Bond County, a magnet school meant Mr. Young's physics lab.
Yeah, I still don't know what a magnet school is.
A magnet school is, at least it was in Broward County, a school that offered a specific kind of
curriculum.
Okay.
I went to.
Okay. I would call that a vocational school.
And it would and in the magnet, if I have this right, the magnet meant it would draw from multiple districts.
Yes.
Yes. Specifically, it would draw high income, higher tax bracket kids to lower tax bracket school.
Okay.
So that you would have a higher level of education for the lower income as well as the higher income.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
The kids that were there would get a chance to go to these programs or get be involved in these programs, and the school would get the tax money that would come along with the kids.
Because Chip and Buffy's parents could afford to have them go the longer distance to the vocational oriented school, not vocational, but like a science school that would help them get into college.
Yeah, it was like one class extra that you would do. It was also a tremendous recipe to get beat up. Oh man, was it a great recipe?
What, going to the magnet school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like in school or getting
why? Because you're just
beat up?
you're just like nerdy and like.
Well, yeah, you get
smart.
busted out to a school that you're without getting too specific.
Some people would think that you don't belong there.
Tell who the magnet kids were and who the rest.
It sounds like my junior high. I got into fights all through 6th grade.
Roger got into fights. I can imagine you fighting.
I went to a quote unquote inner urban school, even though it's in a really nice neighborhood. But
what are we calling this here?
I was thinking rare earth metals. Disney launches ESPN 8, the Ocho. The
problem is we kind of played fast and loose with the term rare earth. I mean, lithium and nickel are not rare earth. I like doing something around the metals.
But,
this episode's so metal.
Rare earth cycling.
That's good.
rare earth. They put parentheses, but Fred did rare earth cycling, like recycling. They're trying. If you look at it, he's trying to say.
Yeah. No, I see. It works really well in print.
Yeah,
we could do that one.
I like it.
All right.
I like that one. It's good stuff.
Sweet. Done. Recycling.
Sweep the legs.
Well, now I'm kind of bummed that I never had a magnet school to think about. You know?
Well, you probably went through the same school or you had the same classmates all through like grade school and junior high and high school.
Well, yes, but my high school is actually quite large just because the area was so big. Like kids from like 20 miles away had to go to the high school. So there were several different junior highs that all sort of funneled into the same high school. You could do that. You could go to the Waldorf school, which is a private school.
Yeah, you could go to the Statler school.
And you go to Waldorf, or you could. There was a Catholic school. There was a girls' school and a boys' school. I think the girls' school burned down in the fire recently, but you could do that. And some people's parents sort of, made them go to the Catholic school because it was, I don't know, better than the public school. But most of us just went to the one high. There was really just one high school.
Vaughn County had two high schools, but it shouldn't have.
I have a tremendous and embarrassing confession to make.
Okay.
I believed that Flanagan's was Ernest Hemingway themed. It is not. It is just themed for its owner, Joseph Big Daddy Flanagan, who happened to also just be a fat guy with a beard that liked to fish.
Okay, so he was just Hemingway-like.
Like Hemingway themed? Like that's so specific.
It just,
the green cups and the dads and the.
There's a lot of stuff in South Florida because of Hemingway's relationship with Key West. There's a Hemingway kind of vibe.
Right. Like he gets in there.
But no, Mr. Flanagan.
Mod at Flanagan's.
Flanagan founded Big Daddy's liquor store chain in 1959. That was the first drive-through liquor store that I ever saw in my entire life, down on 441, and also founded the Quarter Deck chain, which is another South Florida state.
What's that Quarter Deck?
Basically, imagine so since I've just explained Flanagan's to you like that, but instead of it being 75, like a family-friendly kind of restaurant with a little bit of a bar, it is 75% of a bar and 25% of a kind of family-friendly restaurant.
I love Florida.
Yeah.
I mean, what is not to like?
Did you ever have to worry about flooding during hurricane season in that house?
Oh, I mean, that's all of Florida is, used to batten down the hatches. And the thing about Quarter Deck that used to be fun was they had rocking chairs. So it's like a bench, like basically like you and 6 friends could sit down and the entire thing would sort of sway back and forth, which they eventually had to take out because people kept getting drunk and breaking them. Upon how he got the name Big Daddy, Mr. Flanagan earned the name Big Daddy from his 2 daughters. Paul Flanagan said he'd ask them, "Who's the best daddy?" And they'd say, "Big Daddy."
I don't like that.
Yeah, that's kind of
That's
weird.
like a story I don't need to hear. Mr. Flanagan, let's just bury that one.
Yeah, I also. I mean,
it's you, Big Daddy.
It's creepy.
Yeah. No thanks.
By the way, only died. This is from his Sun Sentinel obituary. Died in 2005.
Was he? How physically big was he? Was he just like 250-pound guy with a big beard?
Like you have to literally just Google. His face is on the Flanagan's cup. So if you just Google Flanagan's cups, you will find a picture of Joseph Big Daddy Flanagan.
Catnip for dads.
Catnip for dads.
Hold on.
Old Joe Flanagan, Big Daddy.
There was a restaurant we used to eat at in Vancouver that this is reminding me of, and I'm wondering if it's either a Flanagan's or a ripoff of that.
Like an O'Flaherty's?
I wonder if you can just buy Flanagan's cups.
Well, that doesn't seem like that would be fair. You gotta go.
Yeah, he's not big at all. He's not a physically imposing man.
Well, Big Daddy doesn't mean physically Big Daddy. It just means like big, he's, his spirit is big. Flanagan, Florida.
Oh, and also, by the way, the number one result when you Google Flanagan's Cups is a review for the Flanagan's restaurant where the headline is Big Cups.
It's so good. Oh, look at Big Daddy. Okay. I love how if you look up the Flanagan's menu online, it says, in no uncertain terms, do not ask us to modify, substitute, or alter our menu items.
Wow.
Okay. Good to know before I go in and I look at the menu online. Visit Big Daddy's Liquors.
Yeah.
This is my kind of place.
Oh, again, drive-through. They won't serve you like an open container out of the drive-through like they will in Texas, but they will. You can definitely just roll in.
So, okay. So just because the drive-through liquor store is, I don't get it.
Yeah.
In Texas,
Yeah.
you could go to the drive-through liquor store, get liquor, and drink it as long as you're not driving.
Yes.
And you're sitting in the car.
It might be Texas or another state, but I know that there are states in which you can
Open containers for passengers are
you're
not.
the driver.
Texas used to be like that when I first moved there. I thought they changed it. I thought at one point they got rid of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm asking.
It also
I feel like I remember
that's
it changing
a
when I was there, and I was like, you can't do that anymore.
That's a license to get out of every open container, right? If you just have a patsy on you, and then you can just hand them here.
Well, yeah, that was the thing, right? You just hand it to the person next to you.
Yeah, it seems like a really bad idea. Although, certain cities, Las Vegas, I don't know about all of Nevada, but Las Vegas, New Orleans, you can have an open container on the street.
Yes, South
That's
Florida.
weird to me too.
Yeah, South Florida also has a open containers in I don't know, by the beach it gets a little restrictive because they don't want trash.
Sure. Yeah, too much.
But out in downtown Fort Lauderdale, yeah. In fact, that's usually when I go out into places, I'll oftentimes walk out with an open container and people will yell at me and I'll just tell them, calm down. If the police ask me, I'll just tell them I'm from Florida. My
town is not dry anymore, but growing up, it was a dry town. So you couldn't have an open container in the entire town.
In your own home, you could not?
Oh, inside your house, you could. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, just out in public.
I see.
Yeah. So I remember
if you went to a restaurant, like you wouldn't get a beer.
Oh yeah, no, they were not allowed to serve beer.
Wow, that's so weird.
The only drinks you could get were at the bowling alley, which was right outside the city limits, or Scott's Package Liquor Store, which was also outside the city limits, but you could buy your beer, your wine, and then take it back.
And the reason it was a dry town is because some, I don't know, politician a long time ago was a teetotaler. Or like what? How's that work?
It was mostly because of the Free Methodist Church was pretty dominant, and they ran Greenville College, which is now Greenville University, and they I think it went back to the 20s when they're like, well, we're staying dry. I don't care what the rest of the U.S. is.
Sure.
Apparently there is a walkthrough of my house, my childhood home.
Wow.
Now that I've
I want to see it.
Does it have any memorials?
Pictures. It's a slideshow, and one of the pictures is of my old room that has turned into an office with
I see it. I see
pictures on the wall.
There's pictures of you on the wall?
Pictures of me on the wall, yeah.
Can I share this to the audience?
Yeah, he's trying to sell the house.
Yeah, sell this house, baby.
But is this part like staging? Is like Justin's like childhood photos?
Oh, check it out. There you are.
Let people know like this would be a child's room.
In that photo, go back, Roger. The top left, that is the first article. No, the very, very top left of the picture is a framed copy of the first article I ever had published in.
That's great.
It was a music review for I forget whatever the Red Hot Chili Peppers album was with.
Oh, that's
with
grand.
when they had their big kind of like comeback and they became like relevant again.
Okay.
Yeah, in the Showtime section of the Sun Sentinel, the Fort Lauderdale Sun Sentinel.
That is just adorable.
Oh,
Look at
that
this,
looks
look at
pretty
this
awesome.
cute house.
It's my mom
Like,
said.
if you don't buy it, I'm going to. Look at that pantry.
Oh yeah, no, big walk-in pantry.
Yeah.
What's the
love
what's
a walk-in
the, what's
pantry.
it listed at?
It is at a crisp $299.
Whoa.
Whoa! I thought you were gonna say like 2 million.
Whoa,
No.
this is nice. It's like a
Oh, yeah.
hanging garden.
Why don't we all live there?
Let's just buy it and I'll move there.
You guys.
We'll live in Justin's childhood home.
New Patreon milestone, everybody.
Wait a minute, is this pool part of it, or is this the
No,
community
like
pool?
it-
it is in a condo, and that is a communal pool that I have hopped that fence so many times. I think that should come with whoever buys the house. Just know that I will be walking by your new house and hopping that fence.
I mean, it's beautiful. Like I need to be reminded that not everything is, San Francisco / Western LA prices.
Yo, yeah, no, totally.
Like, wow, like that's a nice house.
This would go for
$300,000.
yeah. If this were in any of the places that we are, it would probably cost $4 million.
Exactly. Yeah. When you
Yeah.
said 2, I was like, yeah, 2
But
points.
it's not a condo.
It is a condo.
Oh, it is.
This is a condo?
Yeah.
It's just a big
So
one.
is it like a townhouse kind of thing?
Yeah, yeah. So it's
Okay.
just a row. It's a row of those houses.
Gotcha,
So you can see
gotcha.
at the end, it's connected to other units, but this is the biggest version of that.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's almost standalone.
It's what like I would say like as a duplex. Like condo, I think of like a high rise or whatever.
Yeah,
but
right,
like
right.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe townhouse might be the better way to
Yeah.
instead of condo.
All right, guys, pack up. We're moving to Florida.
Here we go,
3
Dave.
bedrooms. 1 for Sarah, 1 for me, 1 for Roger.
That's right.
And,
I mean, we're
his
not going to
family.
share one. That'd be weird. Yeah.
So wait, it's like,
Justin, you're invited.
is there ever a danger of like gators and stuff showing up on the front lawn?
No gators. We're pretty far off of the Everglades, although you never really know with South Florida. Crazy things happen all the time. But no, you're pretty much out of the woods as far as
Creepy crawlies.
life goes.
I love Florida.
Aside
Big
from
Florida fan myself.
me too.
It's
I really
adorable.
wanted to. We kind of did a little bit of a deep dive into our finances to see whether or not swinging this was going to be a thing. Because I wanted to just use it as like an Airbnb, like just to kind of keep it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
But it is a lot. Like, I mean, it would be a lot to take care of. It would kind of come with somebody being hired to sort of like
Yeah.
property, which is just too much of a hassle.
Yeah, a friend of mine actually lives. She's American, but she now lives in the Netherlands and has a place in Park City, Utah. Real nice place, and she has had to hire a management company to like just like because she's like I'm so far. I'm like if anything goes wrong, I'm not showing up, and it's not inexpensive.
Well, they take a
It's
cut
lot.
of the rent, and it's not a small amount. It's a significant.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's the convenience of not having to deal with it.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
It's the convenience, but also if you're planning on like, I'm going to hold this property for 10, 20 years and sell it. I mean, it could make sense because you're still drawing income from it, but
Also, they will end up getting more for the house than you will.
Yeah.
So you have to figure that in too. Is like I'm at least for me. Maybe if you're a good negotiator, it's different. But I will not be good at that. But a management company will always get the maximum amount that they can get if they're
Right.
good anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you folks for joining us.
and we'll see you tomorrow with Shannon Morse and Len Peralta.
Mm-hmm.